And do that. Oh, yeah. Here we go, people. I gotta fix my volume. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. I did it. It's totally local. After dark, where all your mysterious questions get answered in the witching hours to come. Totally local. Obviously, you know, it's all about Monmouth and Ocean County. It's totally local because I love this area because, I don't know, maybe it's the brine, the salty air. I have no idea. I have some wonderful, wonderful guests with me this evening. Longtime friend, Ming Chen. Thank you so much for joining. And your cohort, your confidant, Michael Zapcic, is with us.
What's up, Andrew?
How's it going?
Doing swell, thank you.
Good. You guys are hunkering down. I like that. Now, Ming, you were just talking about a Blade Runner prop gun.
Yeah, if I mean, we're all geeks here.
Yeah.
We're all fans of sci-fi.
I think so. I think
one of the pinnacles of the sci-fi movie universe, one of the pinnacles of any sci-fi, is the Ridley Scott, Harrison Ford Blade Runner movie that came out in 1982, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so and one of the most iconic sci-fi weapons is the Blade Runner gun, the Richard Deckard gun from Blade Runner. And I kind of have a connection with this. Many years ago, Kevin decided he wanted to sell all the props from his movies. He had come to some kind of decision. He wasn't going to make movies anymore. And he wanted to kind of wipe the slate clean, wanted to sell every prop that he owned. And that the responsibility for getting rid of these props in the most efficient manner and to get the most value out of them was fell to me. So what I did was I gathered everything: costumes, props, bong sabers from James Bond: Bob Strike Back. These are iconic screen-worn costumes, and we took them to a place called Profiles in History. It's a auction house located in the same town that Will Smith lives in, where they deal specifically in Hollywood screen-used props. So loaded them all into a truck, took them to their place, and they had a guy who was going to photograph each one of them, like on a mannequin or with proper lighting, list them up in a thick book. And then there was going to be this huge auction that they schedule, I think, like 6 times a year. And so I got to their place, and inside glass cases where, like, there was a highball glass signed by the Rat Pack. There was a prescription bottle that had Marilyn Monroe's real name on it. I can't remember her real name, but
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean, yeah. And then there was an endoskeleton, full-size endoskeleton from Terminator 2. Nice. These were like iconic props. And I'm looking around and I see laying there, they had the Deckard gun, the actual Deckard gun from Blade Runner. And I'm like, wow, this is like seeing a lightsaber in person. This is like, this is a pretty iconic weapon. I'm like, well, what do you think this is going to go for? They're like, oh yeah, be careful, don't touch that. It's probably going to go for like $150,000. It's like one of the most iconic weapons in sci-fi history. And, so I'm looking at our props, like fake weed that was
Here's some fake weed, guys.
You haven't smoked the real stuff.
Yeah, his skull cap from his J outfit. And I was like, wow, I mean, these are cool too. But, they had like decorative
these are cool too, but...
So,
so the gun did it go for that much? Did it sell? Have you been tracking it since then?
Yeah, I mean, this is 10, 15 years ago. So... that gun went for $250,000. It went for somebody bought it for $250,000.
And you've been eyeing it recently.
Well, so this Japanese company called Tomino Suke has come out with a line of replica guns that they're amazing. They're metal. I think they took the real one, disassembled it, molded each piece, whatever.
Yeah.
It looks like a real gun. And there's this company selling them. They're about $1,000. They're grand, but they have the light up LEDs. It's a pretty sweet piece. And I'm like, in this time of pandemic, economic disaster, no one's making any money. Like, why do I want this thing so bad? You gotta
stimulate the economy by helping Japan out.
Yeah, I'm going through all like, hey, we gotta, this will kickstart the economy. USA, it's sold through a U.S. redistributor.
Oh,
So
there you go. That's
Really
This
perfect.
is the absolute opposite of a totally local.
This is totally
This is-
not local.
Exactly. He's going global on this.
Well-
And I'm like, Ming, we have to pay the rent this month. He's like, yeah, but I'm looking at this cool Deckard gun. I'm like, Ming, they're shutting off the lights.
well, then I would turn on the little LED lights on the gun and we'd be fine. Like most of Blade Runner is pretty dark anyways. So
There you go.
know.
It's a whole new concept for podcasting.
Unless we're going to like open up a noodle bar instead of a shared universe. Ming, get your head out of your ass.
Yeah, did you notice that Tyrell Corporation wasn't really that well lit? So, and they did all right.
It's moody. It was very moody. You guys could be the moody podcast studio.
They were creepy too. I mean, they were making eyeballs in a lab. So, and he called himself father. So, I mean, and that was James.
It was James Hong. So yeah, it's like, why is the dude from Big Trouble in Little China like selling eyeballs?
Oh my god, that's one of my favorite movies. That's like up there. I'd put it. I can't put it. Maybe I'd put it top 3, top 5. But Big Trouble in Little China has a special place.
Wow.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Blade Runner. Blade Runner did poorly at the box office, by the way.
You know,
it only hit when it hit VHS. Did it become the phenomenon that it is actually?
there's so many movies like that where you go back and you look and people just like lambasted them, and then you're just like, wow, you know, like Fight Club did horrible. You know, and it took that second round of like getting out there to actually have people, or HBO, like growing up, you know, I had one of the you remember the boxes, the cable boxes where it was like click click click, had the little wheel, and you just, you know, I remember just watching HBO. Not my parents were not paying attention, and I was just watching HBO just basically nonstop, you know.
Oh, it turned out okay.
That's perfect.
I turned out perfectly fine. I didn't realize where it affected me until my wife was ready to have our child, and she was showing me birth videos, and I was like, that's disgusting. I can't watch that. And then I like remembered like watching like Rambo and Terminator as a child. I'm like, I could watch this stuff, but I can't see a little, you know, little natural gore coming out of people on Instagram. I mean,
The
come
most
on.
beautiful thing in the world.
It is.
And
It's truly a spectacle.
There's a world difference between Arnold Schwarzenegger like taking his forearm off, revealing a metal hand.
I mean, no, I've seen it up close. It's really very similar. I mean, aside from the metal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chow. Congratulations, just had a kid.
Thank
congratulations, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I had a guest on Ming knows. Jody, our friend Jody, was on last night. She she tricked me basically. She said, "Look, me and my fiance, we're quarantined. We just got engaged. You could ask us anything." I was like, "Anything? It's all on the table." She was like, "Yeah, sure." So we start talking, and I'm like, "So you guys have any big fights?" She's like, "No, we're getting along." It was all like they're getting along, everything's fine, and somehow I stretched it into, you know, I don't know how many people are gonna actually watch that one, but you know, we talked for a while. Luckily, her fiance is a dentist, so I had a lot of dental questions. So if you want any exciting dental talk, please refer back to the Jody episode.
Isn't that like an oxymoron? Exciting dental talk.
I mean, that's what I'm all about, Mike. I like to combine, you know, two things that you might not think could go together: excitement and dental talk. Put them together. That's who I am. So
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We're all fathers here. Mike, I assume you were in the delivery room when the kids came out.
The second time around. First time around, they wouldn't let me.
really?
Actually, we almost lost my first one.
Oh wow.
Everything happened, but everything happened well.
Uh-huh.
But the cord got wrapped around Mitch's neck,
Wow.
and every time my wife had a contraction, it cut off his airway.
Yeah.
So they went in and we were going to do natural childbirth, and they had to do an emergency C-section.
People like Jody was asking me, because she just got engaged. Congratulations to Jody and Tom again. But you know, they're asking me about having a kid, and I wasn't like, my whole life I wasn't like, I want to have a kid, that's what I want to do, because I'm like, I'm kind of messed up. I was raised by people that were messed up. I don't know if I can do this, and I don't know if that's good for the environment, for overpopulation, whatever. But I married somebody, and I love them, and they wanted a kid, so, and I trust their judgment more than my own. So we have a kid. And Jody last night was asking me, like, you know, nobody's really giving us any pros. And I'm like, well, your life is over as you know it. You don't have any more time. You know, it's kind of terrifying when something's happening, an emergency and stuff. And I was like, it's great, but I couldn't really give her any, like, I couldn't tell her any kind of cliched, like, you know, bullshit. You know, it's really tough, and you got to be in it to win it, basically. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear the unconditional love and all that, but what it really boils down to, and this comes from the Chinese culture, you have built-in it's built-in social security. When you get old, your kids are supposed to take care of you.
Oh, man. That's a good point. I need to have another then. I need to have a couple.
Well, I mean,
it's a gamble, you know? One of them's going to be like, you know, not as successful.
Oh, no. Well, if you position yourself right, Andrew, you can make them jockey for your love. So they fight to the death for your approval and love.
Awesome.
Especially if you're stingy with it.
Nice.
Just be stingy as hell with it and just dole it out in little, like, micro units. It's like, yeah, daddy loves you. Just don't say it a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know if this applied to you since this was all based on last year's taxes, but when they announced the stimulus plan, like me and Mike are 5'5" in each other. We're like, yeah, man, extra $1,000, 500 a kid. I finally.
Cha-ching! Of course, that's just it's they're giving us money that we're gonna have to pay later. So it's like, here you go. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I don't. It's not even mathematics. It's like socialist statics. I don't know.
Nobody could really give. You know, nobody can say to you, you should have a kid because it's just kind of this ethereal kind of. You either want to do it or you want to put up with it or you don't. But they were mentioning, they're like, you know, we like to go skiing and go to Atlantic City, and I'm like, well, you know, that's gonna have to change if you know. Do you really want to be going? Like, no offense to Atlantic City and people that love going there. I love Atlantic City. But, like, how often are you going to be going to Atlantic City throughout your life? You know, that often to where you don't have time for a child? I mean, I can't tell them what to do. I mean, good luck, you know. But I figure you can give up a couple trips to AC to have a kid. But
yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, it was my wife and I tried for 3 years after we were married. And it looked like we weren't going to be able to have kids. And then, boom, it just happened.
It just happened? Did you guys, did you read books and study, like, moon charts? And
did you make her, like, do handstands, like, sitting upside down? And
honest to God, my wife did all that stuff. I was just we were going, and my biggest fear was having to go to the doctor, to, like, the fertility clinic, and masturbate into a cup.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what you're doing there. Yeah. I mean, it's not like all guys don't masturbate anyway, but you know, it's like the pressure's on. It's like, here's a cup, here's a Victoria's Secret catalog. We'll see you in 5 minutes. It's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
A time limit on this one?
Yeah, no, give me one. I'll be one and done in 1 minute, dude. Like,
good for you, Ming. I mean, to me, it's. I guess I have a shy urethra or something because.
Something.
It's something shy down there because it's like, really? I mean, I know how to do it, but
by the time I had to do that, I had to get the test or whatever. But thankfully, you know, it was, you know, nothing. Obviously, I have a kid now, so it's all working. But by the time I had to do it, you had these take-home tests. You had a certain amount of time, and then you have to, you know, do what you got to do into a little cup there, and then you could mail it in. It's all kind of a blur. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to just sit somewhere and have to, like, you know.
I didn't do it. That was my biggest fear. But I mean, could you mail in like a sock or something, or like a wadded up like bunch of Kleenex?
They give you
to stuff it.
They give you the device. They give you the containers now, and they you know, they give you the times and you know, we had to, you know, they were testing us. They were doing a lot of tests. They were testing things. So
here's a question: is it like a feed bag you put at the end of the horse? So I mean,
it was like a weird. It was like, well, I don't know if whatever. It was like a little weird container.
Dark. Come on.
You know? Yeah.
Dark.
It was a little strange container, and then I didn't realize that the person, the company we were using, they were somewhat religious. It was some kind of religious tilted. I don't know why, but they gave me some kind of like love condom, some kind of like, here you go, you could use this condom bag thing and then have sex and then use the bag. And I'm like, this is making me uncomfortable. Yeah, I was like, I'll use the cup. Just give me the cup. And then they made me you had to, for some reason, they needed like a fecal sample. They wanted to test us. They wanted to make sure that yeah. So what they give you is I don't know if I'm going to ruin French fries for everybody, but like, you know those little like paper cup containers you get like from Windmill that have the fries in them?
Yeah, the little boat. Yeah.
Well, that's what they get. They're like, here, catch it in this. You know, so it was then you have to take it. There's like a stick. You have to stick it in this tube. You have to freeze it, and then you have to mail it. You know, wow. But I was like, look, I feel good. I think I'm okay. And Lauren really wanted to make sure that we had top billing. And then we went through all that, and then we just had a kid. So like, obviously,
Yeah, well, that's it. But are you sure they needed the poop?
I mean,
maybe it was just the doctor's like, I've got a collection going.
They told me.
Let's see what I can get off this guy.
All I know is from it, I need to drink more kombucha. That's all the guy told me. He was like, you need more fermented foods in your diet, sauerkraut, things with a K. And I'm like, that's what you got from my poop. So, that's what I learned.
I love it. I eat Sour Patch Kids by the bag. I don't know why that isn't working. I don't know, doctor. Are you sure about
It's not. Give me another French fry container. I got to do this again. We got to retest it.
Well, it all worked out. You have a healthy, happy baby.
Yeah. It's so funny how excited, speaking, if not that we can't get enough poop talk, but like, it's so funny how excited you get. He was having, he had a tongue tie. I've talked about this before. He wasn't eating right. And we had to do these procedures, yada, yada, yada. And now, like, he's just a poop machine. And whenever he poops now, like, we just get we're excited. We're high-fiving. We're looking at him. We're congratulating him. And he's just, like, letting him rip. It's nice to know that I'm not messing him up yet. Maybe later on in life. But
there's no maybe, Andrew. You will mess him up. It's one of the prerogatives of being a father. My children are... They're looking at years of counseling. So.
What do you do as far as like music preferences? Is there any way that you have maybe instilled in them some of the music you like, or is it automatic where whatever you're playing they don't like?
Let's see.
Mike, I don't know if I speak to Mike's taste in music per se, but like I think his taste in music already messes them up.
Probably. I'm a huge 80s guy. I love the 80s. I love a little synth in my stuff going on. But my youngest loves the 80s.
Oh, there you go.
He's like, this is great music. My oldest, he's more into rap. He's more into a little bit of hip hop. So, which is
so you like the other one better, basically, is what you're saying.
So my youngest, yes, okay. Of course.
That's good. You pit them against each other, and
like I said, jockey for the love.
Got no respect for Ice-T's body count, man. That's a good. That's come on, man.
That's from the '80s. Come on, that was great.
Yeah, Cop Killer. What as far as comic books go, like, do your children like comic books?
They don't hate them. They will read them. My oldest is reading books of magic now. He's into the whole Constantine thing. Oh, but, cool. They're not. They didn't pick up my love of it. Uh-huh. We're in a culture right now that the youngsters. It takes a special breed to really like get captured by a 2-dimensional flat image.
I loved comics as a kid so much that like I couldn't read books. Like, I didn't have the attention span. I didn't give a crap about anything else. I did direct order for my Wolverines, and I know like Wolverine now is like, everybody likes Wolverine, the movies and stuff like that, but like when I would get those, I would get so immersed in it, like just kind of lose myself in it and just be gone for however long I read it for. They eventually, I got a little bitter after a while after I saw what they were doing with the stories and stuff. I recently watched this Chris Claremont documentary that talks about when like Leafield came in and like kind of just like all that. It was just oversaturation and just kind of messed the stories up and stuff. It was kind of disappointing to read about that. But
yeah, I actually Claremont bitched a lot about it. It's so funny. He bitches about Liefeld and all those guys, but Byrne bitches John Byrne, who actually because they were thinking about killing off Wolverine or putting him out to pasture.
Yeah, they should have.
Well, actually, before he was popular.
Oh, really?
John Byrne brought him in and kind of pushed him towards the center stage. And he's like, I'm Canadian, he's Canadian. Let's see what we can do with him. And, made him this mysterious guy. And Byrne was, when Claremont made him a ninja and a samurai and like every other, I don't know what the part of the Yakuza, he's like, no. He's like, you pissed all over what I was trying to do, you dick. And I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, I loved all up until like I have the issues, I have the mini series, and then I have the issues 1 to 100. I got really into it around like I think the 30s or the 40s issues around there. But I don't know. It was just huge. Now, do you guys like? I guess we're talking about comic books now, but do you guys like DC? Can you tell yourselves like, are you a DC fan or a Marvel as far as the comic books goes? Like, we don't even have to talk about the movies because whatever. But as far as the comic book goes, I never got into the DC universe versus like the Marvel superheroes. There's just something a little. Well, I mean, there's just a divergence of like how the characters are set up. Where do you guys stand on that?
Absolutely. I'm a DC and a Marvel guy. I love both equally because I learned how to read from both. But I think what sets them apart is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and Don Heck, the artist and the writer. The artists were essentially the architects for the entire Marvel universe. Jack Kirby, everything that was there came from Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I put Jack in front of Stan because he was the visual guy. He would throw stuff out. Stan would put words to what Jack was putting on the page. And it took me 2 decades to realize what a genius Jack Kirby really was. And just the stuff that he would offhandedly throw out there, like the Black Panther. And then Black Panther it took another bunch of decades for Black Panther to come in and be like a $1 billion franchise in the movies. But in the comics, he's still like he's one of the 5 smartest heroes in the Marvel universe.
I couldn't, after they started just messing with the whole, I couldn't keep up with all of it. There was just too much going on. And it really started to bug me, like the whole, like I call it like the Simpsons effect, where like the Simpsons family never like grew old, did anything. Like with Marvel, I mean, I guess with all of them, like you kill off Colossus and then you bring him back. Like you kill off the Phoenix and you bring her back. Like they were constantly bringing people back, and it was just after a while, even as a kid, I'm like, this doesn't, they're gonna kill him, and then I'm gonna read, they're gonna be back soon, and that really kind of, I don't know, that kind of made me jolted.
They're coming back.
Yeah,
really the wind out of your sails a little bit.
Yeah,
I got to be honest. When they killed Phoenix the very first time, when Jean Grey, committed suicide on the moon, I was 12, 13, and these guys made fun of me like nobody's business. But I actually cried. I'm like, I was invested in a character. Yeah. No, well, I wasn't standing in the corner, and people like looking at me from the lunch counter, going, "What the hell's up with that kid? Is he got a little bit of a problem?" I was going to start with that, but. And doing that kind of cheapens the entire effect. So, and even more, DC's done it with Superman, the death of Superman.
Oh man, that was like the biggest bullshit ever. And I know Ming, you like Superman. I don't know, Mike, how you feel. I'm not a fan of Superman.
Was all marketing. That was all, brilliant marketing.
It was
for
on
sure.
The news.
Genius marketing.
Yeah.
And Yeah, there. If you remember when you bought that's the Superman issue, it came in the black poly bag.
Yeah.
An armband in there. There's an obituary.
I have like all those I don't know. I was at the perfect age where they just totally suckered me. I have like all the X-Force, all the 30 different versions of Spider-Man with the hologram on the cover and the sealed bag. Oh, don't open the bag. You know, I'm buying these to read them, and like as a kid, I'm torturing myself, like just leaving them in the friggin' bag. It's so stupid.
Yeah, you're like the 40-year-old virgin. You're like, you know how tough it is to keep that in mint in box. But to your original question, DC has the icons. DC has Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They're the icons. They're the archetypes.
Batman, I mean, Batman is like the saving grace to me for the universe. Like, such a cool, always cool, like a cool story arc. I just could never get behind, Superman. He was just kind of nice, and he had all these powers, and then they just slap on another power, and he just could, he was just kind of there.
Yeah, super ventriloquism. Who gives a rat's?
So obviously,
pets. He got pets. They gave him a horse. They gave him a cat.
Actually, Supergirl had the cat, and Supergirl had the horse, and that was really creepy. And I mean, you want to go like comics after dark. Her horse turned into a dude. Her horse turned into a dude who's like, I really dig this Supergirl chick. Oh, and then when he's in horse mode, he's like, she's rubbing up against my back, which is really, really creepy.
That is super. It's a bunch of dudes sitting around like drawing and writing that out. Like, this is a great idea. Like, oh man.
Yeah, these are guys who are like World War II vets who are, bringing back like Nazi skulls from the war. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about Supergirl. What are we going to do this month?
Let's give her a horse with a real big cock. She can ride around, rub up on him.
What do you think, Fritz? And they're making the skull talk.
They're all drunk.
Cowboy, it's good.
Oh man, yeah, that's basically where it all comes from. So thank you very much, comic book world. Speaking
and Hitler, thank you.
Thank you. I was almost going to say thank you, Mr. Adolf, but I didn't say that because I don't want there to be a soundbite somewhere of me saying it. Anyway, so speaking of comic books, that's how obviously you guys met. At that pool party. I don't know, was it last year? I talked to Ming about his origin story as far as. Before working with Kevin Smith, you were working in LA with Matt Damon on some crazy Ben
Affleck. Yeah, they hopped on the whole internet boom train back in 1999, 2000, 2001. They had a internet startup company called Live Planet, and you may remember them. They produced a HBO TV show called Project Greenlight.
Yeah. It
was very unique at the time because it would. If you had a script, if you consider yourself a filmmaker, script, and back then, as now, everyone was trying to make a movie.
Oh yeah,
they all got inspired by Kevin Smith and Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. So you could submit that script online to our website, and then someone randomly would get that script and they would review it and give it score on a number of criteria. And then that got whittled down to the top 10 rated scripts. And then that got whittled down to one final one where the guy who wrote it was going to get the money to make his movie and direct the movie.
Did you work on like the web stuff with them? Like, were you in charge of the website and stuff?
I did the logo and I helped. I did a lot of support as well. So, nice. Yeah.
Did you ever read one of the scripts, Ming?
I did. They were all terrible.
Of course they were.
Yeah. And
you know where they got that idea from? The Twilight Zone. Because the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling invited America to send in scripts for Twilight Zone episodes. And they got in, I think it was 900 scripts.
Wow.
And he's like, all 900 of them are terrible.
You have to be a certain... You have to be a certain kind of person. You have to be ambitious. You don't have to be talented to submit something, to mail something. You just have to be like, think very highly of yourself, be very confident, which is not a bad thing necessarily. And you just have to know how a stamp works. And you could send in, you send in a script. Doesn't necessarily mean you know what the hell you're doing, Exactly. Well, I was going to say, there's a certain amount of arrogance in that and wanting to be president of the United States. Yeah. You got to have it though to do it. So Ming, you were out there. you moved from Michigan to LA to go out to be out there to be with the stars to see what it's all about. You're working with Matt and his friend there, and they came up with an idea to like hide things around the city that people could find or something.
Oh,
and then,
so, yeah. So the Project Greenlight was a pretty good success. If you go back and watch a show, way ahead of its time.
yeah, it was on HBO. I remember it well.
Yeah, and the whole they really wanted to do a thing where they would have a reality TV show and combine that with an internet presence. Something online, and this was before any kind of social media or anything. So it was way ahead of its time, and I thought the TV show was great. They documented this kid trying to get this movie made. Once they picked the winner, he got pep talks with Kevin Smith, and Ben would show up every so often, and they would hook him with some of the stars, the big stars, give him pep talks, and he made the movie, which wasn't great. Mainly for the fact that just because you can write a decent script doesn't mean you can direct it.
Yeah.
So the next year they actually split the contest up where one guy would write the movie and then they would hire directors who could actually direct. And actually went 3 seasons. It wasn't bad, but one of the other shows that was in development was called The Runner, and it was a scavenger hunt show where you would have 2 teams pitted against each other, trying to find objects and clues around the country to find an ultimate prize, which was like $1 million or something. So it was very like kind of Amazing Race before Amazing Race.
It's still there. No one found it.
Yeah, and
the homeless guy's got it in his shopping cart.
Yeah, but they had this whole thing where you would carry they looked like they were like these little wrist things. It was almost like that laser tag from the late 80s where you could like eliminate the competition by finding them and shooting like a weird laser at them. It was a cool idea, but the worst thing that possibly could have happened to a show like that happened, which was 9/11.
We're gonna hide secret packages around the city.
And people were going to be searching for secret packages, no markings around major metropolitan cities. Yeah, that didn't work. So that kind of crumbled that whole thing, and that was a major tentpole.
So Ben and Matt got that Goodwill Hunting money, and they just went apeshit. They're like, we're gonna have a bunch of crazy ideas. We're gonna see what works, basically.
Yeah, it was a fun year though. It was as Matt and Ben and one of the producers from American Pie. It was an innovative idea. Just all of this is way ahead of its time for sure.
And I mean that seems to after you unearthed or somebody unearthed and tagged you in it a paper that you wrote from your university days. So you've always been into kind of what's going to happen, what the future is going to hold. I mean, now here we are, we're doing this crazy stuff. There's pictures on that article that you had that you'd written of like these little grainy, like pixelated, like windows of people talking. I can only imagine.
Back in college, I'd taken an advanced communications class. I wrote a paper about the very first video conferencing application called See You, See Me. And the CU is the letters C and U is developed at Cornell University. And I think I read an article in some geek magazine like Wired or whatever was out back then. I saw this. I was like, holy crap, you can chat with people and see them. And I was like, holy crap, I gotta check this out. So I installed it. I figured it out, and I wrote a paper about it. But this is literally the 1996 version of Zoom. It was black and white. And
here we are. You're like Nostradamus, Ming. You saw all this coming.
Yeah,
Nostradamus.
And see how you can see. This is full 30 frames per second motion.
Yeah.
Like if you got 2 frames per second on that, you were in business, man. You were a badass with an awesome internet connection.
So
is that what you do?
So you took your love of all things media. You contacted Ben and Matt. You were out in LA doing fun stuff. Then the tragedy of 9/11 happened and everything kind of imploded. And then Kevin Smith kind of convinced you, where's a really great place to live? New Jersey.
Yeah, I've been doing stuff for him up until that point for about 5 or 6 years. And he had already moved. He was shooting Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back at the time. So he was out in LA. And, he saw this happen. And I literally emailed him the next day after 9/11, we all pretty much got laid off. Like I think 80% of the staff got laid off because there were no more projects to work on.
Yeah,
we had no purpose of being there. It was very much like it is now with the virus. And I emailed Kevin. I was like, "Yeah, man, we're all getting laid off tomorrow. It stinks. I think I was kind of like, hey, can I put you down as a reference? Figuring if any company just called him up or was a fan, I would automatically get hired.
Yeah,
And
of
he was
course.
like, why don't you come work full time for me? This is the way it was meant to be. You've done a lot for me the last 5 years. A lot of it was pro bono, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did like a fan site, and that's how you guys kind of connected, which is good. I mean, that's how I started doing all the work that I do. Is just I do it for friends, or I'd find something that somebody needed, and I'd just do it and hope that it worked out. And sometimes it did.
Video, some big corporation, somebody with money sees it. It's like, oh man, awesome! Well, hire him. It's like, all right, it usually by helping people out, it leads to greater things.
I hope so.
It's almost. It usually works out, and it definitely did in this case. So
you moved to the Red Bank area, and I remember going before it was the Stash. It used to be on White Street, I think, in Red Bank, and I used to.
Mama Street.
It was at Mama Street.
Mm-hmm.
It was on Mama Street, and I used to go to it when it was there. I'd take the bus all the way to Red Bank, and I would go there, hang out. I think I saw Kevin Smith in there before, like buying comics, so I'd go in there, whatever, buy my comics, whatever. When Kevin Smith took it over, I think I've told Ming this before. Jay Muse was working there, and he remembered my older brother from when they grew up together. I'm from Highland, so they knew each other. And he remembered my brother, and he somehow remembered me because I don't know. I was a lot younger, but I was really into Magic the Gathering cards, and you guys didn't want anything to do with the Devil cards, and he hooked me. He's like, "You're Jimmy's little brother," and he hooked me up. I would go back there, like you guys had so many. I would buy whatever I could buy, and then I'd go back again and buy more whenever I could. But I would imagine what year did you you went to Red Bank, that area, like 2001, 2002?
Literally 2002, like January, like I got there like literally New Year's Day, I think, 2002.
So would that be around the time, Mike, where fate would have it, where you guys would meet? Like you were hired by Walt Flanagan to work at the Stash, and
Right.
And that's when you two met, right?
No, actually, it was I worked for the Stash 2000. Yeah, he hired me in November of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But I had been going to the store. I was going when it was Comixology.
Yeah,
and that guy, the original Steve Dave, drove a lot of people away. And
he was not very friendly.
No, he was not terrible.
You remember him, right? Because I think I met him a handful of times, but Mike is like, he is the living embodiment of the comic book guy from The Simpsons.
He was. Yes. I saw him not 6 months ago. He's living in Thailand now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Living the good life off of all that comic book store money.
I think he's selling pizza and teaching locals how to speak English.
Oh. Well, there you go. That's good.
I don't know if he speaks Taiwanese. There's a whole story behind that. That's an entire other podcast.
Oh,
just the origin of Steve Dave. But
I might have to have you back on here to tell me that.
There you are. But so I started working at the Stash. I was only working 2 Saturdays a month. And
why did Walt hire you originally? Like, did they need somebody in there? Because like working in a comic book store was like, from a kid, it's like such a dream. You're sitting there covered in comics, Sure,
that's exactly it. And Walt and I had talked about it, a lot. It's like, oh, you've got the dream job. He's like, yeah, you'd think so, but try doing it for a time. I said, anytime you need help, you just ask me. And he's like, hey, Mike, I need a guy coming in two days out of the month, and I'd come in also to help him on Wednesdays when the new comics would come in, and we'd put them out. We'd do the poll for the reservists, and it was a sweet gig. And I was transitioning out of being a chef.
Where were you chef? Were you going to chef school, or were you
No,
chefing?
I had already been to Culinary Institute back in the 90s, and I was working around, and I kind of lost my passion for cooking for other people after getting it beat out of you.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
That's what life does to you.
Spit you out.
What are you from? Are you from Monmouth County? You from the area?
Yeah, I grew up in Lincroft.
Oh, right on.
One town over from Red Bank.
Perfect.
And so I was transitioning out. I was going to school at Brookdale, and I've never not worked. I mean, since I was 15, I've never not held a job, except for those times when you get your ass fired.
Yeah,
you can't have a job. But it had been so long since I hadn't worked, and I just kept working. And Walt said, Brian needs some help up at the mail order arm of Jay and Silent Bob. So, he's more than willing to give you a shot. And so I went and started working there, and then 9/11 happened, and it sort of it sucked because we were getting about 1,000 orders a day. 9/11 happens, and we were down to like 50.
Ugh.
And it's like there's not enough work to keep you busy.
Yeah.
So Walt's like, I could use the help here. He's like, we're starting to get busier and busier here. So we did. I started working down there. He picked up all the hours, and it turned into a full-time gig.
That's something where, I mean, would you say, Mike, like, I in kindergarten, when they would be like, all right, draw a picture of what you want to do, and people were drawing like fire trucks, astronauts, doctors. I was like, I just drew a big question. I was like, I don't know what I want. I'm in fucking kindergarten. I have no idea what I want. Did you have like a passion to cook? Did you have a passion for comics? Like growing up, was there something specific you wanted to do?
No, I don't really know.
Yeah, same boat, huh? Same boat.
When I was a kid, I wanted to, hey, who didn't want to be Batman? I wanted to be Batman. That was the picture I would draw, is like Batman.
I am.
And I thought about going to, I thought about becoming a private detective. I thought about becoming.
That would be Ming and Mike, a shared universe detective agency.
How cool would that be?
Podcast studio by day, detective agency by night. There's so many different ways you can go with that.
Best agency since Baywatch Nights, for sure.
There you go. Ming, you dress up like Magnum. I'll dress up like Indiana Jones. We'll be Chippendales. There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah, Tiger's head and a Hawaiian shirt laying around for sure.
Perfect.
So where did Ming and Mike finally like see each other, and was it instantaneous romance and love, or how did that go down?
It was. You tell the story, Ming.
I mean, I'm sure we met because before I moved there, I would stop by the office whenever I was in town. My wife's parents lived in Middletown, so and then Kevin would hold a lot of events like all-day film festivals, things like that. So I would stop ever so often. I'm sure I saw you up in the office packing boxes at some point.
Yeah, stash.
Yeah, and then when I moved up here full time, I would stop in the store at least once a day. So I think we hit it off pretty immediately. We're into the same stuff, and Mike is a very nice guy. He's very good at making conversation. No matter how inane,
it is inane, Andrew.
When the podcasting idea was introduced, I remember being at school out of state and like listening to Kevin Smith's podcast, and Walt Flanagan was on it, and he's got a very distinctive voice. So then when I came back home and I went into the stash and I like bought a comic, and I'm like, oh dude, you're Walt, holy shit, like what's, and he seemed so disinterested and like whatever, like didn't give a shit about it. Like when you guys started doing the podcast, like how did you guys just feel it was like a side thing? Did you think it would like kind of turn into what it turned into?
No, we were more or less forced together by Kevin.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, more or less forced together first off by Brian and Walt, who thought it'd be fun to watch us like crash and burn.
That's great.
So let's see what these guys.
Yeah, I think they're so full of themselves that they launched a fairly successful podcast, but I feel they've always had like, well, no one can do it as good as we can. So and let's see these two idiots try. Let's see them try and then fail miserably so we can laugh at them. I think that's what they were trying to set up, and
it didn't happen.
You guys did swimmingly, and that all they were wrong basically to everyone's betterment. They were all incorrect as far as that was concerned. So that's good.
And that's when Kevin got involved. He's like, "Hey, we got your numbers for the podcast. You did all right. So now you got your own podcast." We're like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, he was like, all right, I heard you guys talking about comics on a podcast. I want you to start a comic book podcast. We're like, wait, what? Like, that was a one-time thing, man. We don't. It's like, no, you got to do it. And
so you guys weren't like, playing, like you weren't like, oh boy, you were just like,
together and be like, hey man, we should start a podcast. Inevitably, it probably would have happened, but who knows? Kevin's just one of those guys you don't say no to. I mean, especially,
you can't say no to Kevin,
especially when he's signing your paychecks. But even if he wasn't, he would be like, hey man, I want you to build a rocket ship to the moon out of long boxes. And
if you said no, does he like brandish a knife? Does he look at you threateningly, or how does he buy you sweets? How does he?
Oh, if you don't want to disappoint Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I think you just don't say no. I don't think I've ever said no to him, for better or for worse. There are a couple of times I probably should have, but
there's only one time I've ever said no to Kevin Smith. He offered, he was opening up the stash in Hollywood in Westwood, California. And he said, I want you to go out there and manage it. I want you to be my Walt Flanagan out on the West Coast. And I'm like, I can't. I just bought my house. I just had a baby. This is not it's not a good time. And he's like, you know what? I can respect that. That's cool.
Oh, wow. So
the only time I've ever said no to Kevin Smith.
You play the baby card. Look, I have a baby. I can't go.
Yeah, exactly. And see, started paying off almost immediately.
The West Coast,
leveraging.
That store would have been open still if you went out there and managed.
I don't know. I've heard horror stories about some of the stuff that went on out there. So.
Good point. But I was like, man, you could have been the freaking you could have been. You could have ruled the West Coast, man.
No, there were fingers in pies that I didn't want dangling.
It's weird out there.
Yes,
and it's so funny too, because like you think about, when I moved away and then I moved back, I was so, when I lived outside of the state, people thought I was loud, obnoxious, disrespectful, rude, and it might have not all been true. It might have been absolutely true, but when you're in New Jersey, like everyone is like every tide rises all boats or whatever it's called, like everybody's loud, so everyone's not technically loud, and people aren't rude, they just tell you, they want to cut the shit and get to the point. So it's amazing how, I don't know, in New Jersey the weather's miserable, a lot of people are miserable sometimes, you get your summers and stuff, but I don't know, I feel so comfortable here. I mean, that's why I love the show. I love Monmouth and Ocean County.
When I was in LA and Ken was like, hey, I want to, why don't you come work full time? Just one thing, you gotta move to New Jersey. And I was like,
you're like looking around at the palm trees, it's all sunny and girls with big fake boobs bouncing around, and you're like, all right.
That was part of it. And listen, LA's fun, and I was single. I was engaged, but I wasn't really I was single at the time. They were paying me pretty well. I think that's the only way you can survive in LA. And all of a sudden, the money was gone. So, but I was like, New Jersey. I was like, can I? I saw Clerks, man. I know what happens over there.
It's all true.
Drug dealers hanging out in front of convenience stores. I came here and I had one bite of East Coast pizza,
boom,
and the bagels, and I was like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah, and not only that, but Ming, there are homeless people hanging outside of convenience stores in LA, probably selling drugs.
Yeah,
so
they got drugs for you.
Yeah, but there was a little hesitation. I was like, New Jersey. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It seemed fine to visit, and Monmouth County seemed pretty cool, but I don't live there. I don't know, but it all worked out. It was literally almost 20 years ago, and I love it here. It's great.
Well, I'm glad you made it, Ming. You're one of the most positive people I've ever met, Mike. I know Ming. Ming knows my wife, knew her for years, and introduced me to Ming, and that's kind of how we got connected. And you've just always been you're just a very some people you meet some people and you can kind of get a read on them, but Ming is like a man of mystery. Like you're very positive, personable, and friendly, and you're like, what's going on here? Is this some kind of grifter?
What's he hiding?
Yeah,
where the body's buried.
Yeah, exactly. But so far no bodies, so everything's.
I hide them well. What can I say?
I'd be a bad con artist, so I was like, hey man, like let's have fun. Like, how do you like to have fun? Let's do it, man.
Yeah. Well, and then I mean, as far as the whole AMC thing and being on TV, you guys sound like kind of like you didn't, not that you didn't care, but it was kind of like a reluctant, like you guys were just put in a position and it was just like, all right, well, this isn't bad. Some people would be like, they have their, I've met people, I have friends who have tried to do like reality shows and put it all together and things got, shot to shit down, but you guys kind of fell into it seems like. Is that a good assertion of the situation?
That's a perfect, we're the Kramers of life in that respect. We fell ass backwards into a reality show, and I can point people out who weren't as successful as we were because we weren't chasing after it.
Yeah.
I suppose because it's like the rabbit on the, at the dog track, the faster the dogs run, they speed the rabbit up.
Yeah.
We weren't chasing it. This wasn't a dream. I mean, what kid doesn't dream of like being on TV as a kid, even growing up and being an adult. I mean, it's cool, but it wasn't the be all end all.
Uh-huh.
So there were stories we wanted to tell, and I think that we told most of them. We had a lot more to tell, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was cool because it was unlike other reality. You guys were just kind of hanging out and busting Ming's balls relentlessly, but like just hanging out, and it just kind of came across. I mean, the same reason I think people like listening to podcasts. It's just people shooting the shit. That's kind of what the show was about, Obviously, you were setting up certain things, so like there was some kind of arc in the episodes, but like the fun parts for me from watching it was just you guys like shooting the shit or busting balls on each other, So
pretty much. And as Andrew, we weren't going for like the MacGyver-esque Columbo twists and turns. We needed to get somewhere. We got there, and in the shortest line possible.
I mean, and I think just seeing spots in New Jersey, that's fun for me, pointing stuff out. Like I lived in Albuquerque, so all the shows that you see that are in it's fun to see. Like, oh, I know that, like building, whatever. So that kind of stuff was fun for me. I mean, so with all that in mind, and what you guys kind of did with that, was it weird at first, or were people like coming up to you and like pointing at you and stuff like look, it's that guy? Like, were people doing stuff like that to you, like in this at the stash in Red Bank? Were people just coming in and giggling and running out, or?
I think like the first couple of days of shooting was kind of weird having a camera around, and I felt a little pressure, like, oh man, this is real, like they're going to put this on TV. And we were all, so I think we were all pretty much suffering from imposter syndrome anyways. Like, what do we do? Why us?
Uh-huh.
Nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to see us talking about Star Wars and flux capacitors and freaking Gandalf. Like, nobody cares about this. And we're all old too. And
the opposite of a reality star. They're like, these guys. Perfect.
Right. Up until then, it was like Snooki. It was like, do I have to get punched? I don't want to get punched.
Yeah.
In account and the stash. I don't want to do like what do we have to do to do we have to amp it up, and they were like, no, just be yourselves. And after a couple of days, like the cameras didn't really bother me, and then we became friends with the whole crew, to the fact like they became like really we started hanging out with them like even after the show was over. So did
it ever get in the way of like your guys, like I guess you guys had like a normal life at that point? Did it get in the way of the day-to-day like minutia of what you normally would be doing, like getting ready for this stuff or having a light on you and stuff like that?
I mean, we kept the store open, so we would let people in between like scenes and stuff. So I think for Mike, like he had to scramble to get books together, especially like Wednesdays, like pulling comics for reservists and stuff. his day got a little longer because they had to work too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ming was just strolling in with his pipe and his velvet
entourage,
robe, his trailer and shit.
More or less, but I don't we've never been to that point where we've been mobbed or anything. I mean, at Comic-Cons we get recognized, which was good because we were always like, if we don't get if we go to Comic-Con, we don't get recognized, it's over.
Yeah,
and no one's watching the show, no one cares anymore.
Yeah, and those are our people.
Yeah.
Those are the core fans. So.
Did the cons were the Comic Cons like the conventions coming up to you guys and just after the show the first did it take a season before people?
Yeah, a couple seasons till we had to figure out what the hell we were doing to it. And again, we were like, why are you inviting us? Why? They're like, well, you can go and meet people, you can sell your autograph and
yeah. What do you want? What do you want from me?
Take selfies with them. I'm like, no one's gonna want that. Who the hell would pay for an autograph? We were so out of it, and we had no idea. So it was a slow process, but eventually, a lot of cons would just contact us and be like, hey, you want to come to Chicago? You want to go to LA? And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Ming, you're a very social person, sociable. You go out, you meet people. Mike, did you have the same experience as far as I see Ming out, and no offense, Mike. I mean, you don't. I don't. I see you. You supported Epic Shouts to calling the shots guys. Taylor and Steve. You were there supporting their stuff. But it's not like you're. I don't know you, obviously, Mike, but it doesn't seem like you enjoy the boogie, that you enjoy the nightlife.
Oh no, that's so not true. I do. I love the boogie. I love the nightlife.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Ming is the face of a shared universe. I still work at the Stash, so way back when it was decided when we opened up that Ming would do the day-to-day. I would come in and backstop him and, do the stuff that we needed to do. But, it's, he's the guy. He is the bon vivant of the con circuit. He is with his snifter of brandy and his smoking jacket wandering around Leisure Suit Larry, just, hey, how are we doing over here? Everybody having fun? And you can't help but like Ming.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to like Ming, not to unless you're a complete sociopath. And if you're some guys listening to this podcast going I don't like Ming. Am I a sociopath? Yes, you are,
yes,
sir.
You are.
You're an absolute sociopath if you don't like Ming. Ming is eminently likable. And when we go to cons, we have a blast. We go out. I don't drink. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. I mean, not that I won't go to a bar, or if I have a reason to be at a bar, I'm there. But I don't stay out real late anymore.
Yeah.
I'm old and I'm used up. No, I'm not. I feel like my 20-year-old self still, but it's we're starting to slow down.
After the last Super Duper Bowl, a bunch of people went over to Brick Wall Annex, and we're hanging out. And I had to follow a legendary comic, Angelo Gingerelli, because he was my responsible lifeline, because I basically just had a kid. My wife let me out, and everyone was having fun and chilling. And I was just like, oh, this is great. But I was like, Angelo, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I'm going to go. He had a set time he was going to go. And I was like, all right, I'm going to tether myself to you and just follow. You're responsible. I'll do what you're doing. But it was really interesting to see, because everybody, after that was just having a great time. Taylor was probably having the best time, but
oh my God. I'm surprised he could stand up.
Oh man. I had him on one of these after hour pie. Him and his wife were on the podcast, and he was like, he apologized the next day. He's like, yeah, man, I don't know. Laura said I wasn't that bad, but I don't remember a couple things. And blah, blah. I was like, no, you were great. You were definitely hammered, but you were home, so it was very safe. But
that was a long day. We'd started podcasting at Johnny Mac's that morning with their bottom $3 mimosas and free.
Oh my God!
Yeah, podcasting.
Yeah.
not serving up troughs of drink.
It's so funny. Like like Taylor is the quintessential like tortured artist. Like I have 100% faith in the Super Duper Bowl. It's not gonna from planning events and doing events and getting my hopes up and having my hopes just torn to pieces. I know that consistency is the key. If anything, it might work, it might not, but you got to be consistent. And I really feel like the Super Duper Bowl in some incarnation or another needs to happen every single year. You know,
I don't know anybody else who's even attempted anything like that.
Yeah.
And here it's more fun than the last. So yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it's every time I see him, I give him a pep talk. I'm like, you got to do it again, because people, I don't know, people love it. But
he's like, Andrew, but I'm $30,000 in debt, dude. It's killing me.
You could have it. You know, just tell him you could have it at my garage. You know, wherever you need to have it, that's totally fine. Doesn't need to be, a big thing.
He had wanted to live stream like a telethon to raise, because I think they owed the House of Independence a couple bucks, and we were gonna set him and Steve Arena up on the boardwalk and live stream it. And I think our idea was like, if you donate like $25, then we'll make them eat anything.
Yeah, they should definitely. If I knew that, I mean, I've done that with friends where we me and my friends, we used to do these winter solstice parties. Epic shouts to my friend Steve Mitchell. He used to throw these parties at his house, and it got big to the point where one year, and he's very analytical, and he makes sure everything is done correctly. This was like right around, I mean, social media was kind of getting big. Facebook was like, out in everyone's hands. Everybody had a mobile phone. I forget what year it was. It was, whatever, how many years, 10 years ago. And he was like, this party's getting kind of big. So he rented the Red Bank Marina, like, boathouse, like this beautiful. Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking, because we were a bunch of like smelly hippies. I was DJing at the time. I brought my sound system in, and it just turned into this like ridiculous, one person tells another person. There was like my babysitter from Highlands was there. Like, there were all these random people showing up that, like, how the hell did it? And, so, you never know how those things are actually going to play out. But the point of my story was that I people all chipped in money. If it takes a fun, like a telethon or something next year to raise money to do the Super Duper Bowl, I definitely want to be a part of that, because it needs to happen.
Awesome, we will. And did that party spill out into Marine Park? Sounds like it did.
It got outside. It was the saving grace was that we were kind of buffered. Like, there was a big fence around it, and you could close the fence, so like nobody could really get in, and there wasn't any real houses around there, and it just got. It got insane. It got to be a pretty crazy party. You can't really, like, I don't know, in this day and age, you can't really do stuff like that, because eventually it just kind of gets too out there, too crazy and too out of hand. But
live stream it like it's on social media. Yeah, you get shut down a lot quicker these days.
Oh, hell yeah, especially in Red Bank. He had insurance. There was kegs, insurance, all kinds of. The best part was the potluck. People brought food, whatnot. But anyway, Super Duper Bowl definitely has to happen again. Epic shouts to Taylor. As far as a shared universe podcast studio, and let me know if you guys got to jump off, but I just want to talk about, you guys went from the show and you had this idea that, clowns like me, like, want to have a podcast, and you guys had a studio to kind of house that. Like, what was like the impetus to kind of get that kind of started?
I mean, it was born from a number of things. One, if you watch a TV show, we're seeing podcasting. We innovated. We were the first TV show or movie or anything to show podcasting in any format.
Like, to show the actual equipment that people were using to actually get it done.
Yeah, if you go back to when we premiered in 2012, there was no depiction of podcasting anywhere. There was no advertising. There's nothing on TV, and they never mentioned it in movies. The only guy talking about it was Kevin. And when he was doing interviews and about how much fun he was having, but no one really knew what it was. So from that, we were known as podcasters. So people could be like, "Hey, what's with the talking to the mics around the poker table?" I was like, "We're podcasting." I was like, "Oh, that looks like fun."
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. And we would tell them. The other part was we would through our own podcasting, our own show, I Saw Comics and the Ming and Mike show. we would go to Comic Cons and people would approach us either there or they would come in the store and be like, "Hey, I love the podcast. I want to start one. How do I do it?" And as you know, we would give them like a 10-minute lesson.
Yeah.
But as you know, that's not nearly enough. So part of that was like, man, what if we had like a classroom or something, or like a studio where we could teach people how to podcast?
Our clubhouse.
Yes.
And give them a proper, like at least an hour, maybe 2 hours, and teach them how to podcast, like show them and record a podcast with them. So by the time they walked out the door, they would actually have a recorded episode. Like how cool would that be? Like how cool would that have been if we had that back in 2011?
Hell yeah. I mean, that's what people would ask me. They're like, well, you have a podcast. Why are you going into the studio? I'm like, because I want to go in somewhere, sit down, and then get have it all done, sit down, hit record, and then bounce, like get out, I don't want to have to deal with all the equipment and this stuff. Obviously I've made do with what I have here, but I can't wait to get back into that environment. It's just so much
gear,
nicer.
though. You know the gear. So, I love you because I don't worry about you. I know you
set it and forget it.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. It's plug and play.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know it. You guys need to write a textbook or have online courses or something where you're just going through because people started asking me too. They're like, well, how do you have it set up? And then they're arguing with me. I'm like, well, you don't have. I'm like, look, man, this is how I have it set up. It's based on what Ming had set up, and then I kind of tweaked it to whatever I felt was necessary.
Yeah, I love it. They're like, hey, send me a list. So I'll send them a list. Or I go, what do I bought it. What do I do with it? Look it up. Like how? I'm like, listen, I got enough to do. All right. Like even if you wanted to pay me to come down and set it up, I don't have time. So figure it out, and then if you run into problems, come back. But yeah, and so that's the nice part about the studio. If everything's set up, if you want to start a podcast, you just come in and record, and we take care of everything else. And
Andrew, one of the best questions we get is how do you monetize our podcast? And you know what I tell them? Remember all that fancy equipment that you just bought? Sell it.
Yeah.
Put it on eBay.
There's no
That's how you monetize the podcast.
There's no monetizing.
You're not doing this because you love it.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, our rates are ridiculous anyway.
Yeah.
So you come in, you get to hang out, you get to drink Ming's booze.
Oh man.
When we have beer there, you get to drink our beer. And you sit back, you kick back with your friends and co-hosts, and you talk for an hour, and that's essentially what you do. And that's all we ever wanted to do was make it that easy for people.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you have fun doing this with Leo.
Hell yeah.
You have fun doing this at night. You've had.
I miss Leo. He won't. He doesn't want to. He's quarantining himself, so he won't. Yeah. He won't do this necessarily. But
you're not doing this because for your health. You're doing this because this is awesome. This is fun.
I can't. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I like to talk. I could talk for a very long time, and you could put me in front of anybody. You could put me in front of a dentist, and I'll have something to talk about with a dentist. Yeah. And I felt like in the area, I was just like, well, to me, people focus on topics, which is great, but I wanted to focus on, I don't know if there's some kind of weird vortex in the area that makes people, the way they are, but, there's a lot of flavor going on in the Monmouth and Ocean County region. Leo is really against, he's like, why do you have Ocean County? And I'm like, because Ocean County is like the Keensburg of Monmouth County, it's like you need Ocean County there. It's on the come up, and people basically can't afford to live in Monmouth County, and they're all going into Ocean County. So,
right. Exactly. Monmouth County is the torso, and Ocean County is the adult diaper.
There, that's perfect. That's exactly right. And I didn't know there was people down there doing things, and I've met a lot of people. I'm glad I have it on the logo. I love Ocean County. I've been down there. Tom's River, lovely place. So
you're going to be like, there are people down there doing things like making meth.
They're cooking it. They're selling it. They're yelling at each other.
Smoking it.
Yeah.
I think in the end, we were like, this is so much fun. Surely we can't be the only ones having this much fun. Can we show other people how much fun this is? This is kind of like, it's like a new thing that you discover. It's like, holy crap, this is awesome. Everyone should be doing this.
Well, I agree, and I want to, if it's okay with you guys, when all this stuff clears up, I really want to do my main goal, a psychic once told me on the Ocean City, New Jersey boardwalk that I would be a talk show host or a game show host. So what I really want to do is do the Totally Local After Dark. I want to have a talk show set up. I want to have my favorite guests, in the room next door, and then just bring a guest out and just do an episode like that. And basically that will allow me to interview people I love and then also drink with my friends at the same time. So,
yeah, you can do all of that. I don't even know if you've seen our 5th floor yet.
Yeah, I saw the 5th floor. Remember, me and the boys from the Simmons and More podcast were up there, and then we saw the roof.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so killer, man. I was like, I'm really looking forward to finally, getting in there, because if you're gonna keep buying, guns from like sci-fi movies and stuff, there was no room left in the one, so we were kind of just sitting there between all the packaging,
closing.
Yeah, we didn't want to mess any of it up. So now you definitely have a lot more room in there. So, and it's Eatontown, centrally located, right on 36. So it's a perfect.
You're
spot.
like almost in the middle of your Totally Local map, which is awesome.
Well, guys, we I don't know. I think we covered a lot of stuff here. We
did, and we could go for another 8 hours. But
I could. I could.
Listen, I love that you kept going. Seriously, I think all the podcasters that have kept going through all of this, deserve a big shout out, and they've been very inspiring. A lot of them could have been like, I don't want to mess with it. I'll do it when I get back. Or I'm sure there's some podcasts that have given up, sadly because of all this, and maybe they'll come back later. But
don't if you love doing it, then you should do it. And consistency is the key. I was actually talking to somebody today. They were doing a podcast with their cousin or something. They're like, oh, we got to have 5 episodes done before we put it out. And I'm like, don't be an asshole. Just put them out. The ones that you're doing now are going to teach you how to do better ones in the future. If you look back on people doing podcasts, I love watching like a Gary Vaynerchuk or like a Joe Rogan. If you go back, because I would go back and be like, I wonder what their first podcast looked like. And they're not very good quality. But that's how you learn how to get better. Don't like save up 5 episodes and then release. I hear that more so than anything else, as far as when people are making podcasts, like, oh, we're recording them, but we haven't released them yet. And I'm like, what is this? What are you two? Like, what do you mean you're not releasing them yet? Like,
right. Yeah, and then finally they put them on that first episode. It's like, man, so how about this virus? I hear there's a virus coming up. So, you think it's as bad as they say it's going to be? It's like, no, man, that's all. That's China, man. Like, it's so dated. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Wait till Hillary's elected president. It's going to be great.
Boy, man, I hope Trump doesn't get elected. Imagine a he's president. And we have friends who have recorded stuff that far back and they haven't released it.
Oh, man. That stuff should be like edited, cut together, and like a best of like the archives, what never made
it. The lost episodes.
Yeah. So like, I mean, doing this, it does. I like sitting down with people person to person. But doing this has given me something more to do. It's given people, kind of an outlet. And I've actually talked to local businesses. People might not want to hear about like mold remediation and cleaning up a building for like getting ready for like COVID cleanliness and stuff. But I talked to a dude from Serve Pro today from Eatontown Long Branch.
We had Serve Pro in too, and they were great. I was like, holy crap. Like if, they had stories, man.
Yeah. Oh man, I started getting into. I didn't want to put the guy on the spot, but at the end he had a in his website bio, they were talking about like biohazardous material and stuff like that, and I was like, so you've seen some gross stuff like dead, like I didn't say dead bodies, but I basically said like dead bodies, like all mangled and shit. It was like the daytime Totally Local, so I didn't want to like upset the kids. But he was kind of getting into a little detail. He wouldn't go too far into it, but like he must have seen like decapitated hookers that shit their pants that have been sitting there for 2 days,
covered in maggots, like all this stuff, man.
Yeah. I was asking him, I'm like, did you ever like throw up in your suit or like have to slap a rookie and be like, get yourself together, man? He's like, we don't take rookies on those kind of jobs. I'm like,
oh my God. Is that Serve Pro Keensburg?
Eatontown Long Branch, man, but still,
right.
They serve Keensburg. That's probably where they found all the bodies. But,
that's what I'm asking.
That stuff don't come here, man.
Hey, we got to find a new body dump.
That doesn't happen here, man. Yeah, take that to Keensburg, man. Leave it in Keensburg.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it was great. It was really great talking to you guys.
Thank you.
You know, I really like to get into, you know, it's cool to check in on people and how they're doing and all that stuff, but I really like to learn about like the origin story, where they started, how they met, stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys telling me, you know,
You're a true comic book fan then, because those are the best stories, man.
Hell yeah. All right, so I didn't tell you guys this before, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but when I play the outro music, if you could just give me a little finger guns or a little dance, you don't have to do anything crazy, you don't have to take any clothes off or anything like that, but when the music comes on, just give me a dance for 5 seconds. I have everybody do it. You know, you don't have to go crazy, but I would really appreciate that, and I really appreciate you guys spending the time. A Shared Universe podcast studio, Ming Chen, Michael Zapcic, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you guys. I can't wait to get back in there and, you know, get back into it. This has been Totally Local Podcast After Dark. Please check me out. Totally_local podcast on Instagram. TotallyLocalPodcast.com. And check me out on Facebook. You're here. Thanks a lot, guys.